Boxing truth here. I had to watch the Adrien Broner, Adrian Granados fight for a second time just to make sure of what I exactly I saw. And after the second watch, I come to the conclusion that Broner won a close but fair decision. You really can't scream robbery either way. It was a close competitive fight, which I expected. I felt Broner would separate himself with a knockdown or two in the fight to really give him a definitive victory. But surprisingly, he wasn't able to drop Granados, even though he was landing the counter punches that I thought he would. He was landing the check hooks, the step back counters, the uppercuts, but he was unable to drop Granados, as Granados has been dropped many times in his career, and he took some big shots in the fight. And from what I saw, the judges favored Broner's more harder, better, flashier shots that he landed in the fight. It was a judge's dilemma, as Steve Weisfeld likes to put it in his when he had a very brief and pointless role on HBO. Then the HBO ended up letting him go. He was one of the judges for this fight, and it was a judge's dilemma in this fight, and he favored the harder, cleaner, more effective punching of Broner, and he ended up getting a scorecard of 97 to 93 for Broner. I saw that same type of fight as Weisfeld saw, and judging from boxing Twitter, on the internet, a lot of people felt it was close. Some felt Broner won, some felt Granados won, and a lot of people felt the fight was a draw. And I could see that. I could see the fight being scored a draw. I could see Broner edging the fight because he won the last two rounds of my scorecard. The 10th round was competitive, but a lot of the rounds I gave Broner was because he was landing the better, harder, more effective shots. And I'm always consistent when I score fights. If you've been watching my channel regularly for the longest time, I always give the fight to the guy that I felt landed the harder, cleaner, better punches in the fight. I've always been consistent on that, and y'all really can't say that I haven't been. And that's the reason why I felt Broner defeated Granados. Close. You can argue a draw. The fifth and sixth rounds were close. I gave it to Broner because he landed the hardest shots. The thing was, I just wasn't impressed with Granados' work. Yeah, he was more active. Yeah, he threw a lot of punches. But throwing more punches and being more active are not scoring criterias. I'm more impressed of the significance of the blows. How good are the punches that you're landing? Are they effective? Are they clean? Are they hard, crisp shots? And a lot of Granados shots just weren't that effective. A lot of arm punches. There wasn't a lot of mustard behind him. He landed some good body shots, and he had a good series of rounds. I mean, the fifth and sixth were competitive rounds, tough to score. I thought he won the seventh and eighth rounds clearly, but I only felt he won 3 rounds. But you can make an argument he won five because there was a couple of rounds in there that were very tough to score. But I saw a similar fight that Steve Weisfeld saw. The other judge scored it the same score, but in Granados' favor. But like I said before, it was a judge's dilemma in this fight, and Weisfeld showed he went with the harder, more better punches of Broner, which he scored the majority of the rounds for. And the judge that scored it for Granados, he went with the work rate and the activity and the many punches Granados was throwing. Maybe Granados did land more punches, even though the show stats don't support that. But I don't go by punch stats. Maybe he did land more punches, but who landed the harder punches? Who landed the better punches? Who landed the cleaner punches? Who landed the better shots? And I'm sure if you're honest with yourself, you will say Adrien Broner. And like I said before, I'm consistent with my scoring. It doesn't depend on who I pick. If I felt the fighter that I picked took an L, I would admit that. But in this case, I felt you can say Broner edged it. It was close. It was just that type of fight. It was a judge's dilemma. You really got to go by your taste, whether you favor harder punching or you favor more of a work rate activity, more active fighter in the ring. It really comes down to your preference when it comes to judging this particular fight. But I've always been consistent. That's why I felt Kovalev defeated Ward. He landed the better, harder, cleaner punches. That's why I felt Canelo defeated Miguel Cotto. He landed the harder, better, cleaner punches. That's why I felt Trinidad beat De La Hoya, because he landed the harder, better shots. And I'm one of the very few that feel Trinidad definitively defeated Oscar De La Hoya. The American media will tell you otherwise, that it was a robbery or it was a bullshit decision. But nah, I truly felt Trinidad defeated De La Hoya legitimately. And that's why I felt there's another example of a fight like this. Benavidez and Herrera. That fight was similar to this Broner Granados fight. Benavidez was he was landing the better shots. Herrera was more active and threw a lot more punches. But his shots they weren't really that effective. They weren't that strong. And Granados, I just wasn't impressed with the work rate. I wasn't impressed with the significance of his blows. They just weren't that hard. weren't A lot of his punches didn't have enough on them. And throwing more punches and being more active is not a scoring criteria. The punches that you land, how good, how hard, how effective, how clean, that's what really matters. But it was not a great performance by Adrien Broner. It was another disappointing performance. It's just pretty much the same. He hasn't improved. He's the same fighter. He's probably regressed a little because of the beatdown he took against Maidana, and that took away from his psyche. It took away his confidence. It took something away from him psychologically. He's never been the same after that ass whooping. He was never a great fighter, but he had so much confidence going into that Maidana fight. Maybe it was a false sense of confidence, but at the same time, it gave him more confidence in his abilities. He was faster, he was stronger, he was punching much harder, he was punching with more confidence, and his gas tank was a little better as well. And now everything's a little slightly off. His conditioning's worse. He's not really showing much power at 147 pounds. He's never really shown much power at that weight. He's just not really good at 147 pounds. He's pretty much a tweener now. He can't make 140. Not really big enough to deal with the big boys at 47. It's really time to consider for Broner. We gotta start gunning for that cash out payday, bro. You ain't gonna beat none of them fighters none of the top class fighters at 47. It wasn't a good performance. You train like shit. You don't go all the way in the gym. The way you train is the way you fight. You throw punches, you're explosive for a few seconds, and then you take a fucking break. That's your problem, man. I mean, you need a new surroundings in your training camp, perhaps a new voice. Get somebody that's not gonna just, that's just gonna, dick ride you and give you false sense of confidence. They gotta be real with you. Like, yo, bro, you gotta work harder. You gotta throw more punches. You got to be more consistent offensively. Because right now, you can't beat none of those top dogs at 147. They'll all eat you up, baby. Probably Lamont Peterson. Lamont Peterson probably whips you right now. Jeff Horn will beat the shit out of you. So it's time to get that cash out payday, because you're going to get exposed sooner or later. It was a close fight. I felt you edged it. It was very close, though. I have no problem if people felt it was a draw. I really can't see how if you felt Granados won, I really can't see it. But if you felt he won close, I got no problem with that. But I went with the guy that I felt was landed the harder, better shots, and that was Broner. I've always been consistent with my scoring. And AB, it's time to cash out, bro. Get that Manny Pacquiao fight. Be happy with the number you're gonna get. and take the big fight that's gonna set you for life, and take care of your family, and that's gonna you're gonna be good after the fight. Pacquiao's gonna beat the shit out of you, but no one really expects you to win that fight. It'll just be a good, fun, entertaining fight that people will pay to watch, and it's time to cash out, man. Otherwise, you're gonna get exposed sooner or later. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.